Hey guys, my name is Ksenia, welcome to my channel. About a week or 2 weeks ago I posted a day in the life of a tech copywriter where I shared what a typical day looks like for me over the week. And a couple of people messaged me in the comments saying that they're trying to break into the field as well. So I thought it might be helpful for some if I maybe share my personal experience, how I got into the field, and share a few tips that I've kind of realized along the way, and maybe I wish someone told me earlier when I was just starting out. And before I get into this, there is this distinction between being a copywriter and a content writer. A copywriter is someone who typically writes ads, slogans for ads, headlines, maybe short social media posts. And a content writer is someone who's typically working with like longer form of content. So for example, blog posts on corporate blogs. And as for me, I refer to myself like 50-50. Sometimes I say I'm just a copywriter, sometimes I say I'm a content writer, depending on who I'm talking with, because obviously not everyone knows the difference, not everyone cares, not like they should, and also even within the field, it's not set in stone, people use those terms interchangeably all the time, so it's not a big deal. But I thought I'd mention it because I'm more of a content writer, but I'm a copywriter as well in a sense. And secondly, there is a difference between being a technical writer and a creative writer. So even though I'm a copywriter or content writer in tech, I don't do technical deeply technical content. So a user guide, for example, for the software is not something I would be doing, but I write more creatively, so the blog posts and other things like that. So if you want to be a tech writer, that's a bit of a different thing, so I'm not sure how my video is going to be useful, probably not much, but if you're looking to be a more creative writer, then this video is for you. And since we're on the topic, let me just quickly break down what I do mostly. I'd say I work on several projects, and across all of them, I think maybe 80% of my work is actually writing blog posts, not blog posts, but blog articles, right? So longer form content for companies' blogs, and all the projects I work on are within IT, right? Technical field, and all of those companies, they want to have their own expert blogs because they want to have a certain brand positioning, because they want to draw a lot of organic traffic from Google and things like that, because blogs are great for SEO, things like that. So I do a lot of that, but also I work with the website, of course. So if a client needs a landing page, I'll write text content for it. I can work with existing content on the website, like update it, right? Make it, like change it up, make it better. Also sometimes, it's not a big part of my job, but I write emails as well. There are social media posts too, but because I work with the B2B, social media is not so hot in the B2B in tech. Not in some it is, in some it's not. And the projects I work with there, it makes a little bit of sense to be on social media, of course, to be active, but it's not a huge source of leads or revenue, so the companies don't really focus on that much, and therefore it's not a big part of my job as well. Then there are case studies, which I also do sometimes, not too much, even though I think this is a great type of content because it shows your prospects and existing clients as well that you've already had a success case with somebody else, and this is where we started, this is what we did, and that's the result we ended up with. I think it's great, but for my clients, they don't do many of them. And how I personally got into the field, I used to work in sales and partner management for a few years, and this was in tech as well. So right off the bat, I started my working career in the technical field in the IT company, and there I was again working as a sales associate and then as a partner manager. And after a few years, I realized that it's not for me. And after about maybe a year and a half, maybe a year, right, of me having no idea what to do with my life, having constant crisis and just being lost and feeling down, I literally stumbled upon the copywriting, content writing career because I was just browsing job postings that were available in the area where I lived at the time, and I just came across this role which ended up being my first job in content writing. And this was actually kind of perfect for me because neither me nor the employer knew really well what we needed to do, what we wanted, because they at the time they didn't have any copywriters working. Like they had maybe a couple of freelance copywriters doing external articles, right, for expert news portals or like expert industry portals, but they didn't really have anyone in-house or any freelance that they work consistently with. So they realized that they're missing out, that they need SEO optimization, that they want to have clients see them as experts, right? So that's why they needed a blog, and also they just thought that more activity online would do them good, which of course ended up being true. So the way the job description was written, it was kind of weirdish, because they said like, oh, neither full-time nor part-time, something in between. We're not really sure, because they didn't even know like the workload, what it's going to be like. And also they listed things that they expect from me, so writing articles, doing this and that. But in terms of requirements to the candidates, they were a bit not lost, I think, but they were more or less flexible, because again, they did not have much experience. And they basically said that they want someone with an experience in IT, in tech, and someone who understands the business side of things, but also has insight in technology. And the reason for that is that their end user, their client, they are not very technical. They are mostly decision makers, and they don't really care about the nuances and intricacies of how the software works and this and that. So they needed someone who could write copies that normal people would understand, right? People without vast technical experience. And that's where I kind of fit nicely, because sorry, there's a dog snoring next to me, so if you hear weird noises, it's her, not me. So yeah, I did a bachelor in business management, and after that I went straight to the my role in sales and partner management. And I was also lucky, I think, in a sense that the company I applied to ended up working for had this perception that every employee, even if it's like somebody working in human resources or partner manager, they need to understand more or less what's going on with the technical side of things. So my onboarding and everybody's onboarding started with a 2-week crash course where we had daily lectures on all things technical. But it was just intense for those 2 weeks, and then you got to start working a little bit, right? Having more businessy trainings, meeting the teams, doing more tasks that resemble your actual job by the time you were done with onboarding, things like that. So yeah, first you ended up learning a lot, and then it was kind of sinking in over the next few months, and then the company would also have ongoing trainings and things like that. So even though my technical knowledge was like this, maybe it was negative, I ended up understanding a lot about the IT field, I think, about the pains of clients and the needs, like what's working, what's not, how everything's connected, the terminology, of course, as well. And this was super helpful for me later on when I moved to content writing. So yeah, I kind of was lucky. And also going back to this first job posting that I ended up getting, the role that I ended up getting, so even though I didn't really have IT degree, right, or practical experience that much, I kind of knew things here and there, and I was pretty transparent about it. When I applied for the job, I said that basically my experience with writing is quite good, more or less, because the business school, they make you write a lot and research and just teach you all the same skills that you need, I think, for copywriting later on. And I did a few things here and there over the years in my sales and partner management career, because obviously there you have to kind of, we had a huge marketing team there who did all the marketing materials, but sometimes you would end up writing those little things to clients. Yeah, like I didn't really have the experience, but I said that I did a few bits here and there, and I'm willing to try and I'm willing to learn if they're willing to give me an opportunity, and they did. So yeah, this was kind of how I got into the field, which was great. And this also taught me an important lesson, that even if you don't think that you 100% meet all the requirements, or if you're kind of thinking that, okay, I don't really have the experience or knowledge, I'm just gonna make a joke out of myself, I'm not even gonna apply for the job, or if I apply and they offer an interview, just say no, because who am I kidding? So if you end up feeling like any of what I've just described, just ignore it and go into it, and don't lie, don't like fake it till you make it hardcore. But I think a lot of the time the employer is fine with us not knowing 100% of what we are expected to know, right, or not having all the experience. They're willing to let you learn, but they just want to see that you're enthusiastic, that you're ready to try, and that you're just excited about the role. Yeah, and I really thought that, okay, maybe this is it, this is what I can do with my life now. And it's now a bit more than 4 years later, and I couldn't be happier, with my career choice. I'm really excited that I took the risk, that I kind of trusted in myself that I'll be fine, and yeah, I did it. So this was great. And I'm explaining all this just to give you a little bit of background and just tell you how I got into the field. And I realized that I was kind of very lucky in many senses, that a lot of things came in together nicely, like this company where they did a lot of trainings in tech and then something else, but at the same time I was working hard across all stages. So, you know, I was lucky, but I also put in the work, definitely. And of course, when I started, at first few months were kind of rough because I had to learn so much. It was a new field, a fintech project, so it was kind of hard on its own. Plus, I needed to quickly adapt and learn and perfect my but just work on my copywriting skills, content writing, and I had to learn everything. So at the beginning, those first 2 months, I really didn't do much else. I think I kind of thought that, okay, I have those 1 or 2 months now maybe where it's gonna be kind of hard and stressful. I'm just gonna power through it, I'm gonna do it, and then it's gonna get easier. And that's exactly what happened. So along the way, somewhere I watched a few courses, I think on Coursera, on Skillshare, I watched something online on YouTube, and I'm sure at the time those courses were helpful to me, but I can't really say that it was something groundbreaking, you know. I think a lot of what they taught me was probably useful, of course, but also action and doing things and practicing is more important than any course that you will ever see or any article that you'll read about copywriting. You just have to kind of do it, you know, start writing. It's like riding a bike. You can't really, you can read all about it, but unless you sit on it and you start writing, you don't really learn, you see. So the most helpful thing for me was just to get to work, you know, not procrastinate any longer, not to try and sabotage myself, because I had this major imposter syndrome, which I think I kind of still get sometimes, occasionally, but it's not getting better. And I'm not gonna lie, for the first maybe 2 years of my career, I was feeling like I don't belong sometimes, in a sense. I thought that I really am an imposter, and at some point those companies are just gonna realize that I actually have no idea what I'm doing, and they're paying me good money for nothing, and like there's somebody else who can come in and do the work better. And it's not, I don't think it was damaging to me, but it definitely gave me a bit of anxiety, and now it's much better. Of course, with experience, with more proof of me just having long-term relationships with clients, with companies, and them working with me for over a year now. Some of them I work for over 2 years, and just get down to it, start writing, start looking for clients. Once you lock them in, start working on their tasks, and I think you'll be golden. Because I didn't really, with copywriting, again, I stumbled upon it. I didn't really think long about how I want to do this, but I'm not sure. But I did this same thing with other things in life, you know, and I've ended up wasting so much time. And YouTube as well. Okay, maybe I'm not the most successful and huge YouTuber on the planet, but I'm doing it, I'm enjoying it, and I procrastinated it and I postponed it for the longest time because I was just unsure if, like, who am I to talk about anything on YouTube, right? Who am I to just share my life online? Why would anyone care? And it's fine if nobody cares, right? Kind of, I hope some people do, but in general, like, if you really want to do something, you should really do it. And it's the same, I think, with copywriting. So definitely don't postpone it again. Just get down to it. And in terms of what's going to help you be successful as a content writer, I think there are two major things. First is you have to be curious, and you have to be eager to learn and to research, to study new subjects, to just, ask people about the thing that you need to write about. Because I end up researching a lot and learning a lot as well, and it's great. It kind of resembles university, which I love, of course, a lot. But if you're someone who is not like that, and you hate researching, you don't really want to waste time on looking things up, and you're more confident working with what you already know, then copywriting can still be for you, of course, but maybe you would need to stick to a single employer who would teach you all about their products, and then you would more or less stick to this one thing at a time. And alternatively, you can just find a topic that you're naturally passionate about and write about it, but this obviously limits your job opportunities severely. So I don't know, maybe try be more open-minded about it. And the second thing that's going to be very helpful and useful in your future success is being good with time. So planning and time management, even though I think it's all now, like, when you talk about time management, people get immediately, like, they don't really even want to talk about it. I think at least that's the case for me, because I think we had so much of this toxic productivity, right? And all of those I feel like there's a lot of men who are doing this and are passionate about this productivity, toxic productivity, but a lot of them now are moving into doing podcasts about women and stuff like that, so they're kind of abandoned the whole topic. But still, I feel like when you talk about productivity or time management, a lot of people think that you're a weirdo. Everyone is just tired of being productive and all that, and we just want to live our lives and just be happy and content. But as a copywriter, it's important that you kind of respect the deadlines of clients, of course, but also that you just don't get overwhelmed, especially if you start working with more than one client. I found for myself that it's extremely helpful to be good with time, and also to plan and do things in advance. Like even if your deadline is not approaching yet, but you already have this task, just start working on it now when you have the bandwidth, because time will fly like that, and before you know it, you'll need to submit a few things on the same day, and you'll be like panicking and just typing away and hating yourself for not doing it sooner. So yeah, definitely being curious, being willing to learn, and being good with the time, or at least being open to improving your time planning and time management skills, is definitely something that will help you along the way. Another thing I wanted to touch briefly is niching. Some people, I think, recommend choosing a niche and sticking to it. Others say that, oh no, you have to be multifaceted in this changing world, blah, 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 you need to be adaptive. And for me personally, I didn't niche down to anything. Technically I did. I only work with tech companies, so I guess you can say that. But tech is obviously enormous, and I worked with companies that develop medical software for management of medical practices, companies that actually make medical software, finance software as well. But there was one client who I worked with for quite a long time. They've been developing the software for team management and project management, things like that. So it's a lot of different niches, right? And then there was a company that's outsourcing IT services. So for them, it was really whatever, because they're pretty big and they outsource a lot of different things. So I had to kind of learn about all those things at once. So it definitely made my life a bit harder in terms of whenever I got a new client, or even within some clients, there was such a wide range of topics that I had to dive deep into and understand and learn and things like that. And of course, it's kind of hard, especially if the topics are more technical, like programming languages, for example. Like I honestly do not know much about it, but with the right amount of research and talking to the team members, you can produce decent copies, of course, that are not going to be maybe number one in the world, but they can be of high quality. But that requires effort and energy. This can be hard. That's why I think if you're not, if it's something you're willing to try, and that's something you're doing out of passion, out of love, and you're in a position that you don't have to make a living with copywriting, at least not just yet. For example, you have additional sources of income, right? Maybe you're renting out flats and things like that. In this case, niching down can be a good thing, but for me personally, I think it makes more sense to go through those uncomfortable stages of employment where I first struggle to understand anything of what's going on, but then I kind of research and learn and adapt and understand. And in a few weeks now, I think it takes for some projects that even is a few days is enough, and I already feel much more confident and I can produce decent content. And I think also in this economy where, again, nothing is guaranteed, right? It's very important to be able to work with different types of companies, different types of products that they sell, produce, different types of target audiences that they target with their products. It's going to help you just be a much more experienced and better professional, I think. So basically the choice is yours, but I think I would recommend personally, and based on my experience too, it worked out great, that you don't niche down too much, at least not at the beginning, especially if you don't really know what you want to do with copywriting, because there are also so many topics you can write about. And also even within the tech, again, this company I mentioned that creates software for project managers, their end user, the core end user, was a project manager, right, or a team leader. So those people, they don't really care about IT that much, right? They don't want to know how the software works. They want to know the functionality that's available to them, right? But not the back-end things. So for this client, I mostly wrote about different project management strategies, about Scrum, about Agile, about I don't know how to be a good project manager, and there's a list of things. So even though it was a tech company, a company that the vendor that developed software, I didn't end up writing much about technology for them. I did occasional articles, but mostly, again, it was something that their end user would be interested in and attracted to. So this was not really technical. So yeah, that's such a great thing about working as a content writer, I think, especially with multiple clients, because for all of them, it's just so different. They work with different software, they have different standards, they have different expectations, right? And their end users are different. The software itself is different. So every experience is pretty unique. And so you're never really bored. I mean, you can be, I guess, if you work with the same set of clients for 5 years, but it's just, yeah, very different in every company. So you end up learning a lot as well if you work with multiple companies at a time. Which actually brings me to my next point, my next part of the video, where I want to talk a bit about my strategy with clients. So I already mentioned that working with different clients is great because everyone is different and you get to learn a lot with every company that you work with. And also I think it's very helpful for your peace of mind, I guess, but also financially it makes a lot of sense to work with multiple projects at a time. Again, depending on how much workload does every client give you. But usually, even if you have like this one big client that asks you to do a lot, to produce a lot of content, you can most often find another one where they just need maybe a few articles a month or a few posts a month. And of course, it's not going to be a lot of money, but also you never know what kind of opportunities it's going to lead to, because I got this client for whom I was doing it was, it was unstable. 1 month they wanted a lot, next month they wanted a little, and it went on like this for a while. And first of all, with them I didn't have a flat rate, so my pay depended on how much work I did. So 1 month it was great, next month it was little, and this can happen a lot. So that's why also you can work with several people at once, so that you have more security in terms of the income that you bring in. But then also it's about use of your time, right? If you feel like you want to do more, you want to learn more, practice more, especially in your first years in the career, it's helpful to be a bit more busy, I think, doing different things and learning so that you can, again, become a better professional faster. And also, even though I personally I don't, for example, like to go on places like Upwork, right, where you can just look for clients for one-offs and little tasks, because I don't know why, but I never really registered there as a copywriter, and I don't really intend on doing that now. And instead I go to those traditional job posting websites where I look for long-term partnerships. So I never really want to look for clients every month. I know some people prefer it because it's easy, it's nice, it's something different every month. Plus, it just gives them more freedom as well. This month they take a lot of clients, next month they just have a few if they're, I don't know, for example, a parent, right, and they're summer starts, they can just work minimum, and when the kids go back to school in the autumn, they can take on more work again. For me, it's not ideal. That's why I like to find those long-term partners, again, who I work throughout the year. And of course, everyone has a dead season like in summer, but more or less the workload is stable, and that's easier for me. It's also easier for them to just have this one person, myself, right, who they have to deal with. And that's what I do. But even with those longer term partnerships, nothing is guaranteed. And one of the projects that I worked with, which I actually loved a lot, and it breaks my heart that it is a startup, they're still operational, but they they didn't have any investments, external investments. The founders poured their own money into the project, and they kind of struggled to release it because they needed more money, and it ended up being more complicated than they expected, as it always does, I think. And so they've been trying to get find an investor for their project, but they couldn't do it. I don't think they found one yet. Basically, to attract investors, they had to roll out the product on the market and to get a certain number of users, ideally paid users, who were using the product. But they couldn't finish the product because they didn't have money, which they needed investment for. So it was a catch-22. So of course they tried to optimize, and they've let go of me as a copywriter. Also a few developers who were, maybe least efficient or something like that. So they really cut down on the team in hopes of kind of surviving through until they roll out to the market, and then they can find an investor. They still haven't. So what ended up happening for me, this was quite a big chunk of my income at the time. And again, I loved doing this job. It was kind of time consuming, but I enjoyed it. I liked the founder, I liked the product, everything was a perfect match, more or less. But one time the founder called me and told me that, you know what, we're really sorry, it sucks a lot, but we're gonna work with you for another like month and a half, and then we're gonna have to basically stop for now. And this can happen a lot, especially if you work with startups, but even with established companies, you know, some companies, they kind of, it depending on the management as well, they try, or they do the A/B testing. For example, you know, they work without, for example, a blog on the website without SEO optimization, and then they kind of embark on this project for a year to see what kind of changes it brings, and then they can give you the job and a few other people the job, and then by the time they decide, okay, we had this kind of increase in leads, but it's not worth this and that investment, or we just don't care, and they try something else, and you can be let go as well. So nothing is really guaranteed, and if you've ended up investing putting all of your eggs into this one client's basket, you're gonna be without any money, you know, once they tell you, sorry, we actually don't need your services anymore. So that's why I personally try to work with at least a couple of companies at a time, because it just gives me a peace of mind because I'm obviously trying to save and have an emergency fund and all like that, but you know, it's still better to just have multiple sources of income, I think. But of course you need to be careful about not taking on too many projects, so that you can actually deliver a good quality result for each of them and not be an embarrassment and, you know, not let them down as well. And I think I've been talking for a while now, so the last point I want to make is about pay. It's going to be different for everyone depending on where you're from, the companies you're working with. I find that tech companies tend to pay higher than some other companies for copywriting services, content writing services, but nothing is guaranteed. And it can be kind of hard to pitch your rate to the company, because they would some of them don't see that much value in it, even though like they know the value, but they don't think your work, you know, the outcome is valuable, but not your work essentially, which sucks, but it still happens. And for me personally, because I started in the tech field, I already had a pretty good hourly rate that I've calculated. And so when I was switching to copywriting, I knew that, okay, maybe I'll earn a bit less. Of course, it's possible, especially if I have like just one part-time project or something like that. But I knew that I had this certain rate already, and I was not ready to cut on it drastically, you know. I wasn't ready to work for pennies, basically. And that's also something that I encourage other people to do, even if you think that, okay, I don't really have experience, who am I to ask for this high hourly rate and things like that. Just do it. Don't be crazy about it, right? Don't ask for $500 an hour if you have no experience, no name, and nothing like that. But definitely don't lowball yourself. Don't offer 10, 20, even $30 an hour, I think, is not so much, depending on the projects you work for. Because if you are going to write about complex things that require education, maybe experience in the tech field, and something else, you deserve to be paid decently. And sometimes definitely you will give the company a number, and they will think like, no, and they will end up going with a cheaper alternative, cheaper candidate, right? And that's gonna suck. Happened to me, definitely. But with some projects I definitely got paid way more than I expected, even because some of them, for example, if a company posts a salary range, I just go for the top limit. You know, if they say we have this and that task and we're gonna pay you $2,000, I'm gonna say, okay, I want 2,000. I'm worth it. I have experience, I have education, I have skills, I have brains, I have the work ethic. So if anyone deserves to be getting this maximum level of compensation, that's me. And sometimes the company will be like, oh yeah, cool, you go for it, girl, and they'll give me the job and they'll pay me the money. Other times, again, like I said, they will not, and they will say, okay, actually right now we think this is actually what we are ready to pay you. Sometimes it's acceptable, sometimes it's not. But if you don't get more money, if you don't ask for more money, right? And I know if you're just starting out, it can feel weird, and you're like, I don't really have anything to offer, like, who am I to be, you know, demanding like that? But at the end of the day, I think we all deserve fair pay. And if you end up being a terrible employee, they'll just fire you, you know. But you may end up working really well, actually, and then you will be doing a good work, and they will be paying you good money for it. So I don't see why not request the maximum that you can possibly get. Oh, and sorry, I know I said it was the last thing that I wanted to talk about, but I actually saw in my notes that I forgot a few things. First of all, portfolio. I do not have a fancy portfolio. I've actually been contemplating making one, but I didn't really need it, because I got a job without it, and then I thought maybe I need it. But the second job I also got didn't require me to do a portfolio. And then before I knew it, I started to get referrals, so I didn't have to apply for jobs, but the jobs were coming to me, which is very good and very nice, and kind of also helps fight this imposter syndrome thing, because if, you know, some of your former employers or current employers refer their colleagues or just industry peers to you, it means that you're doing a somewhat decent job, right? So this was nice. And I never really needed a portfolio, but I've created a simple Notion page where I've put my name, my job title, brief description of what I do, and then I've listed the company names, and I've did like 1, 2, 3 names of the articles with links. And I also briefly mentioned that the goal of the article is, for example, I don't know, lead generation or brand awareness. And it's a really simple page. It's nothing fancy. But if I apply for a job, I ended up doing this Notion page because I thought that it's just good to have it all in one place. And so this little simple Notion page now, if anybody asks me about the portfolio, even because sometimes if people refer me to somebody, right, this somebody can still ask about my previous experience, and instead of frantically trying to remember what articles I did that were good and decent, I now have this simple Notion page. But I know that, of course, many people want to have a website and recommend having a website. I think it's pretty cool, and maybe I'll do it one day too. But right now, it's not like a priority for me, but definitely something useful. I also know that some people just use a simple Google Doc as well, and they put the links there and kind of do what I did in Notion but in Google Doc. And I don't think at the end of the day that for some companies maybe it will be a deal breaker, but most of the time people don't care. They just want to see that you know how to write and that you can produce great content, and then how you design it, you know, is not so important because you're not a designer after all. But yeah, definitely don't sweat too much about it when you're starting, but just think about it. Maybe Notion can be a good way for you to build a short, simple portfolio. And if you're wondering what to put in this portfolio if you have zero experience, then I think the best way to handle it is to just start writing. You can sit down, think of, okay, what am I interested in writing about? Is it going to be tech or not? For example, if you are interested in technology and you also want to, for example, write social media posts or longer form content for companies, you can just open random companies that you're curious about, that you know, that you hear about on the market, see what they're doing already, and kind of brainstorm what else could you be doing, right? And for them, for example, if you worked for them, and make a plan of 5 or 7 posts or articles and just write them. Take a week where you write something every day, and then the copies that you think look best, you can put them in this portfolio, and you can just say that actually this is a sample. You don't have to even mention the company name, saying like, oh, I wrote this for Netflix, right? But bear in mind, this is a sample. You can just remove any names of companies, anything that your potential clients can recognize, and just say that here are the examples of my work, because it is your work, right? You wrote it, and okay, maybe it's not for the client, but you did. That's a copy you produced, right? So they can judge your skills based on it. And yeah, I think it's actually so important that you just, take action, write those test articles or blog posts or emails, whatever you choose to work with, and just get started, don't procrastinate. And even if your copies are not going to be the best, and they will probably not be, especially if you're just starting out, you just still need to produce something, and you still need to show your potential clients something, because you never know, maybe you're exactly what they're looking for. And even if they see that, okay, maybe you are not their perfect candidate, but they're willing to give you a chance, and then you start working, and over time you will be better, get better and better. And this is the most important part. Okay, now I think I'm done for sure, and I have my sleepy dog here who's not happy that I'm waking her up, but we actually need to go for a walk. So we'll go do that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found it useful. And if you are a copywriter as well, if you have any useful, helpful comments, insights, please also leave them in the comments. I'm sure I will be interested in reading them. I'm sure everyone else who watches this video will be curious about it too. And thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.